Unless you look like this, you've been sadly overlooking one of the warmest and most talented bands to grace the shoegaze genre. I genuinely believe these guys are up there with the greats, and classifying them solely as a shoegaze band might be doing a disservice to their unadulterated innovation. For anyone unaware, shoegaze is a style of alternative rock music derived from 1980s neo-psychedelia, typically focusing on large washes of sound, ethereal guitars, and an overall dense atmosphere. Chorus, reverb, and delay pedals are the cornerstone of the genre, and it gets its name from the fact that shoegaze performers are always staring at their feet during performances, typically because they're high on fentanyl or other illicit substances. Shoegaze as a genre had a quick rise and fall in the grand scheme of modern music history, really only having about 3 to 4 years in the spotlight before being overtaken first by grunge and then by Britpop, hailing from America and England respectively. Despite the trials and tribulations bands like Slowdive faced at the end of their career, the shoegaze scene continued to rape people's ears, getting louder and occasionally destroying concert venues nonetheless. Even so, the output of the genre became relatively small and near non-existent in mainstream music. Eventually though, younger audiences dug up the decaying corpse of shoegaze and propelled the genre towards a larger and more modern audience. This primarily applies to shoegaze bands with a dream pop slant, such as Slowdive, Allison's Halo, and Lush. But this video is about a band whose grave is not yet defiled. Rather, a band who has yet to be properly risen, as Jesus once was. Their name? I speak only of Honeydip. Formed in Osaka, Japan in 1995, Honeydip released just 3 albums before disbanding in 2004. During their time together, nobody gave a fuck about their music outside of some rural ant colonies in Japan. It's just as was written by the scribes of old. The renewed interest in shoegaze will make them whole once more. This relatively unknown group disbanded due to personal issues regarding the guitarist and drummer. Luckily for us though, the band was reinstated in 2024, and since then have begun touring and claim to be working on a new album. According to one of the members of the group, the reunion felt like a miraculous event guided by fate, and considering the somber tone that came with the announcement of them breaking up, it's no surprise that these guys were ecstatic to play on stage again. Alright, that's all fucking wonderful, but who are these guys? What did they actually do? Why have I been raving about them for the past 2 minutes? I think it would be best to start by talking about their influences in order to get a full picture of their music. Most shoegaze bands in the 90s were influenced directly by the UK new wave scene that came before them. But what makes Honeydip special is that they came 10 years after the initial shoegaze explosion, yet still shared these same influences with those past shoegaze bands. That 10-year gap definitely did something to set them apart, because their music is so unlike anything to ever come out of that initial shoegaze era, and for that matter, any era before or after them. To this point, Honeydip themselves don't agree with the shoegaze label that's been bestowed upon them, and while I think they may have some kind of brain deficiency for denying it outright, there's definitely something that separates them from your run-of-the-mill slop shoegaze band. You hear some bass-forward songs on their first 2 albums, reminiscent of Peter Hook's playing for Joy Division. And I swear to you, for their last track on their second album, Another Sunny Day, they siphoned Elizabeth Fraser's vocal cords straight from her corporeal being and placed them onto the song. The song in question is known as Stargazer, which is definitely a reference to a Susie and the Banshee song of the same name. It's also pretty clear that these guys have a genuine love for the post-punk / ethereal wave era in the 80s, since a bunch of their songs are either word for word, bar for bar song title references, or song titles from other artists with slight changes. Speaking of their second album, Another Sunny Day, it's the first one I ended up listening to since their magnum opus, in my opinion, Summer's Gone, as the opening track. And god damn, it did not disappoint. Every single track on there is just magnificent. And let me tell you, you're either being flashbanged with a feeling of nostalgia you didn't even know you had, or transcending beyond fleshly experience towards a glowing light in the sky. This album is where the noise and ethereal nature of human existence coalesce into one being. And frankly, they peak here. No words can be spoken to truly encapsulate the feeling their music shot through my heart. So I advise you to go take a listen when you get the chance. It's a great place to start on their short yet powerful discography. Interestingly enough, their first album also has Summer's Gone on it, but similar to the rest of the album, it takes a much more somber and downbeat tone compared to the interpretation of the song on the second album. This goes for the whole thing, and while I think Another Sunny Day is definitely tighter and more concise, Portable Audio Science has a greater focus on the dream pop side of shoegaze, for better and for worse. When they do get into the shoegaze stuff on the album, things are incredible, but other times they kinda just drop off slightly. Jesus and Mary Jane is probably my favorite here. It's got a beautiful, downtrodden, but kinda resilient feel to it, and the vocals fit the backing instrumentation perfectly. The first two songs are really what drag you into the album, but the further you get in, the more sparse the entrancing melodies get. And that isn't to say any of the songs are bad. In fact, I think they're all quite good, and I can only feasibly see one or two skips during the whole experience. The closing track wraps things up nicely regardless, and the whole thing makes for a solid-ass album. So they're 2 for 2. Honeydip stayed in this shoegaze realm between these two albums, so where the fuck are they gonna go next? I mean, they're so innovative and glorious. What could they possibly pivot to now? The answer is India. Groovy Indian Summer is the closer to their Banger 3 album run, and fortunately, you do not have to visit India to be fully immersed in the album. I don't know why they named it this, maybe they just really like Indians, but they completely flipped the script here. The shoegaze is limited and it turns into more of a purely neo-psychedelic album, with elements of Shimokita-kei, a J-pop inspired rock genre typical of what you think when you think Japanese rock. They start the album with some ambient wave sounds and instantly throw you into one of the most emotional J-rock songs I have ever heard. It starts slow, which is characteristic of a lot of the songs on this album, but the build-up makes the chorus feel triumphant and inspiring, and it just makes you feel like anything is possible. Then they smack you on the side of the face and drop you into Suicidal Summer Rider, where shit goes from 0 to 100, and all of a sudden you're racing on the side of a fucking mountain overlooking the beach. They think, alright, we're already goated, so let's just do some bullshit. Now, we're Daft Punk. The track Flashdance comes on with these bouncy drums and these smooth synths. You get this little sexy guitar riff before you jump right back into that chill beach vibe they've been cultivating. Two inspirational songs come on. Both of them have a kind of tinge of regret in them, similar to a few songs on Another Sunny Day. But Honeydip says we can't leave our fans in this depressed state, looking back on what they could have been, what they could have done or said differently. Let's give them a 4-minute instrumental track. Now I know what you might be thinking. Nobody wants to hear that shit, but trust me, it's beautiful. They summon millions of bubbles to lift you from that deep trench they just threw you into. The song's called Deep Sea Watercolor, by the way. And you feel that pressure building, and suddenly a fucking dolphin appears beside you as Galaxy Surf comes on, the next track, and carries you back to shore on some David Hasselhoff shit. You finally make it. What a journey this has been. That Japanese man whose voice you've been listening to for the past 35 minutes, he says, hey, it's over now. Cure comes on and reminds you that no matter what you may face in life, no matter what challenges lay ahead of you, you embody the human spirit within you. And with that, anything you desire to overcome may be made possible through it. You realize that life is born through intense struggle, and that despite all the pain you faced, it's made you who you are today. You're left to think and wonder if this suffering is all worth it. You must come to the conclusion that to be a human is to suffer, and to suffer is to be human. You simply accept this notion and drift back into the waves, accepting your humanity.
I would never cry to a Frank Ocean song, let's be honest. I am a